Hello everybody, how's it going? Today I'm going to be showing off my Kings Island theme park that I made in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2. It's modeled off of Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. It used to be owned by Paramount, and now it's owned by Cedar Fair. It's the park that I grew up next to, and I didn't find any replicas of it in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, so I decided to make one myself and put it on YouTube. This is not the finished product. I still have a lot of decorating with the buildings and stuff to do and the scenery and stuff like that, but I'm pretty far into it to where I thought I would just put up a video showing all the rides because pretty much all the rides are done except for a few small ones in the Kiddieland. So yeah, let's just get started and let me show you what I've done so far. So we have the entrance with the sign um, and a couple buildings. If we use the see-through function, you see that these are actually the restrooms, which this whole area is pretty accurate to how the park looks in real life. So I'm pretty happy with how this area looks right now. This is like a fest house sort of thing. You have the entrance with fountains, and then the main kind of uh, feature of the park. Everything's centralized on the replica of the Eiffel Tower. So it's a chairlift that just guests can go up on here and look around the park. And then moving over to here, this sign's messed up. I'll fix that later. We have the Kings Island Theater, which is just a little performance theater, but I just added a little 3D theater inside of there. Um, so yeah, it looks like guests are going into the theater to watch a show. And then this kind of fest house sort of thing just has a bunch of restaurants in there. First ride, and this is called the Action Zone, is Face Off. It's just a little boomerang coaster, reverse incline launch. Pretty simple queue line. It does hang over the outside of the park, and you can it's one of the main rides you can see from the parking lot. Right now it's called Invertigo, and it's also repainted blue. But I made the park from what I remember as going as a kid. So I included a lot of the older rides and called them the older Paramount names, like Face Off, now called Invertigo. But I also included all of the new rides and just kind of squeezed them in where I could. All the rides that I really, care about and rode as a kid. Delirium, it's supposed to be swinging like a pendulum back and forth, but this is the best I could do. I'm using Open RCT2, which does have a lot of cheats and it does have a lot of things you can mess around with, but I'm not very good at them. This is like my first recreation of a park, so I'm trying to keep it, as vanilla as possible when it comes to like the technical aspects of actually using Open RCT2. We have Pirates Fury or Vikings Fury, which is just a little over the water Viking ship ride. Then we have Congo Falls, which is just a little boat ride where guests can stand right here and get splashed. And then we have Drop Zone, which is a very large drop tower. This ride is very, very intense because it's so tall and drops so fast, but this is accurate to how high it is in real life. I just used OpenRCT2 to make the guests ignore the intensity level so they actually want to ride this ride. Otherwise, no guest would want to ride something that has 14 intensity. And then walking all the way back here, you have Top Gun. It's now called, I think, Flight Deck or something like that. But obviously the old Paramount movie Top Gun. It's a suspended swinging coaster. It just kind of goes up, uses this landscape, and then winds and swings through the woods, twists and turns, and it ends up right back in this kind of airplane hangar style station. I'll show you my favorite part of the ride. This kind of swinging right near the queue is probably my favorite part of the ride. Always nice to stand there as a kid and watch it go past. And then following this path all the way back, I should make a like a Son of Beast sign right here. I'll probably add that later, but really long queue line all the way back into the woods will bring you to the Son of Beast, which has pretty high intensity ratings because it's at the time it was built, it was the tallest and fastest, or not the fastest. It was the tallest wooden roller coaster, and it was the only wooden roller coaster with a loop. It no longer this got this got torn down. It no longer uh, had the loop after like 5 or 6 years of being in operation with the loop, but guests got injured on it. They took the loop out, and then this ride was just too big, too problematic for a wooden roller coaster, so they just ended up taking it out a while ago. But um, I decided to include it because it was a really fun ride. Uh, but it was really rough since it was such a big wooden roller coaster. It has this nice, huge double helix, which was kind of hard to do given the limited track pieces that I have to make a large, nice-looking double helix. Um, Again, this is the Son of Beast. At the time, it was the only wooden looping roller coaster. And yeah, it's the Son of Beast, and we'll see the Beast later. If you are familiar with Kings Island at all, you should know that. And then we also have the Banshee, which is pretty new, like 4 or 5 years ago. It's a suspended swinging coaster. The real Banshee has a loop that goes, well, the chain lift goes through the first loop right here. But with RCT2, it just really couldn't get that to work. I probably could have used cheats, but again, I'm not really familiar with how to use the cheats since I really haven't played this game a whole lot. Um, yeah, pretty simple layout. I think it had some sort of record for most inversions of a suspended coaster or something like that when it was released. I'm not sure if it still has any other records like that. But yeah, this is the Banshee. And moving over, so that was pretty much all of the action zone as it's called. I don't know if it's still called that, but it was definitely called that when I was a kid. Moving over to here, we have Coney Island, or yeah, Coney Mall is what it's called, I think. Um, has a lot of flat rides like Scrambler, which I have to change the name of. Dodgems, we got a carousel ride. Um, I should have added a whole bunch of like buildings and games, carnival style games and stuff like that right in here, but I just am a little lazy. Eventually, I'll add a whole bunch of decorations and stuff, but it's just very tedious to do that. This is Adventure Express. Got a nice long queue line. Most of it's covered. It's a not really a mine train ride, but the track is most accurate to it. I mean, the mine train track on Open RCT2 uh, ended up resembling Adventure Express the best, so I ended up just going with that. Yeah, it just has a pretty simple ride. No, nothing too crazy. Doesn't have any large drops, but does have this nice little helical section with some decorations that you're going through, and then for anybody who's ridden Adventure Express, at the end you have this hill at the end with a bunch of kind of, I don't know what they're called, like tribal guys kind of swinging their arms, and then it's very anticlimactic. You literally just go down a small little bump and then you end up back at the station. Yeah. And next to that you have the Racer. It's a dueling wooden roller coaster. It came out in like the early 70s when the park first opened up, I think in 1972, something like that. You have a red and blue racer. The red racer is no longer backwards, but it used to always run backwards, and the blue would always run forward. And yeah, it's just a very typical wooden style roller coaster. It somehow in this beginning part, the I added or an extra track piece on one side or didn't add it on the other side, but and so these aren't synced up perfectly, but that's pretty accurate to the park. If you've ever ridden the racer, they're not like, neck and neck the whole time. Usually one always comes out ahead of the other one for whatever reason. So I decided to keep it in, and they actually do end up meeting up pretty well on this section. So I actually think it makes it more realistic. So that is the racer. We got the monster. I don't have a lot of flat rides to work with, so I just recolored some, basically the scrambler ride again, and just added like a little monster seafood stall guy. Try to theme it properly, made it black. I don't know. I was having trouble with the scenario maker. I didn't add enough ride types, and I didn't add enough scenery types. I only have like a few theming styles, so I was very limited with the amount of scenery. But for the next park that I make, now I know for the next time basically that I should add more scenery, and I know what to pick in the scenario editor. And they actually came out with an update uh, to be able to come out with more, or to be able to raise the limit of the amount of objects you're allowed to pick in the scenario editor. So that's really nice. Here we have Area 72, which is a new area in the park, a newly themed area for I think last year, because they added Orion, which is the first Giga Coaster at Kings Island. But yeah, basically you come down under the racer to this ride, which is Flight of Fear. It's a completely dark indoor ride, launch coaster. I just used pretty much cheated, but I used a default design that came with this coaster type. And it actually ended up being like pretty accurate to what it actually looked like inside, and it was just really convenient, compact track to use. I don't really know what Flight of Fear looks like. It was hard to get, pictures of the track, and the best I could do was an indoor lights on POV, but you couldn't really get a good layout of the track, so it would have been hard to make anyway. But this is pretty accurate. And also, it's worth noting that on the real ride, you have a drop-off section where the guests get off, and then the trains come in empty, which definitely adds to the whole theming on the inside of the building. Here you have another defunct ride, Firehawk. It's a lay down coaster, flying type, where you start in real life you'd start laying down, but I just it couldn't really do that with the coaster types I had selected for the scenario. So it's just you start flying and then you're pretty much flying the whole time, with the exception of a few sections that are inverted. But basically, yeah. The only inaccuracy in this ride would be that I couldn't do a large vertical loop, so I had to kind of do a kind of a half loop and just call it good. But other than that, pretty accurate recreation of Firehawk. And then Firehawk is no longer there because they added Orion, which is this Giga Coaster. I don't have a building for this yet. I should probably have built a building, but it's okay. I'll get around to building more building and theming on this area. But again, this is no longer there. This replaced it, but I built them both because I like them both. I've never ridden Orion yet. Hope to go back and ride it soon, but yeah, just a Giga Coaster. The stats on this one are way too much. I tried my very best to get this design to not have these ridiculously high G's, but I just couldn't get it. It doesn't have this bend also. It just continues out into where I have no more room, so I had to kind of fit a very, very large Giga Coaster in this small area. I thought it would be big enough given that it's half of this large map, but it ended up not being possible. So I just have some cheats that I turned on there where guests ignore the intensities, and so they'll want to ride it. But yeah, this is Orion. All right, moving on, we have Windseeker, which is just an observation deck. You could probably play with Open RCT2 a bit to get this to look a little bit better. But in reality, their guests are on chairs and they swing around, kind of like a big swing style. Coney Mall is missing a lot of rides, flat rides, but I just don't have the flat rides to give it enough variety. So I'm not worried about this Coney Mall area too much. It's not really fun to build, so I just didn't build it. Here we have the Vortex. It's a corkscrew roller coaster. Uh, the name of the coaster type in real life is escaping me. I forget, but yeah, basically it's uh, interesting design, a lot of inversions. We have this section right here, which guests can look at, like this guy Shannon T is doing right now. This is probably the best feature of the ride, since it does go really close to where the guests walk. Um, this is what the queue line looks like. Yeah, also this ride just got taken down, I think, last year, just because oh yeah, it's an aero coaster. That's what it's called, an aero coaster. And those usually last about 20 years, so it was, or maybe it was 30 years. I don't know. I think this came out in like, yeah, 1990. So yeah, like 30 years. So it was reaching its end of life, and I think it was sinking into the ground or something like that. So they took it down, and right now there's nothing there, just a blank plot of land. Moving on, we have probably the most famous coaster at Kings Island, which is the Beast. It is a wooden roller coaster that was built in-house. It is the longest wooden roller coaster in the world. I probably one of my favorite rides at the park, just because of how it uses the landscape really well, and it just goes all throughout the woods. Probably one of the best night rides in the world, just because it's just out here in the middle of the woods, and there's really the closest thing is like over here in the park. I mean, and there's like no lights at all in this whole area. Um, so you got the underground tunnel right here, and then it just kind of winds all throughout the woods. And then you have a second lift hill with this huge double helix. Not as big as the Son of Beast, because the Son of Beast was modeled after the Beast. But yeah, very large double helix. It goes through this dark, dark building. Really, really fun ride. This was really fun to make. Kind of a little bit tough to model all the hills and the landscaping, but I think it turned out really good, and seems to be a favorite amongst the guests that I have in this park. All right, moving on, we have the entrance to Whitewater Canyon, which the entrance was redone recently, and I had to look at some YouTube videos since I haven't been to this park in a while, but this is how the entrance looks now, because they added Mystic Timbers, so they had to kind of remodel and reroute the entrance to this Whitewater Canyon. But basically, you go on this long pathway across a couple bridges, um, and then it's just a river rapids ride that kind of goes all throughout the woods here along a river, and it actually interacts with Mystic Timbers a few times, which is new because Mystic Timbers was added pretty recently. You have this area where guests can shoot water cannons at the guests that are going by on the River Rapids ride, which is probably my favorite feature on the ride. I also added these uh, platforms where the workers fire the cannons off and get people wet. There's also some tunnels in here that they look pretty good. I added, yeah. And moving on around the park here, we have Mystic Timbers, which is a pretty new ride. This This ride is pretty liked amongst the people that have went to Kings Island. It's regarded as one of their best coasters that they have at the park. I like this queue area. It's pretty well themed. I've only actually ridden this ride once because I haven't been able to go home to go back to Kings Island in a while. But uh, yeah, it just is another wooden roller coaster that winds all through the landscape over some whitewater canyons, some rivers, and then goes pretty much goes out and then comes back. A lot of airtime, a lot of lift hills. No really big drops, just this kind of like windy, curved, banked drop. And then at the end of the ride, you kind of, I'll just fast forward here. So, yeah, you just kind of slowly go into the shed here. And then, yeah, when this ride came out, there was a lot of, I guess, marketing around what happens in the shed and all that stuff. But there's some special effects that happen in there. It's kind of cool. Didn't add anything too crazy on the inside. It's just for show on the outside. This building took a while to make, and I really liked how the theming of this whole area came out of this whole area called Rivertown. Right here we have the Tomb Raider ride. It was after they lost their deal with Paramount and became Cedar Fair. It was called the Crypt, and then a while after that, the ride was shut down. This ride was changed quite a few times. When it came out, it was ridiculous. It would like hang you upside down for a really long time, like 10, 15 seconds, which is a long time to be upside down on just any ride. But yeah, on the inside, we literally just have a motion simulator. In reality, this building would be a lot bigger, and the queue line would be a lot bigger. But I didn't really have a lot of room since there's a lot of other rides in this area. I didn't really have a lot of room. This is no longer here, so I just kind of squeezed it in. Nice homage to the ride. I enjoyed it. And then we have the Hyper Coaster, Diamondback. Queue line is pretty accurate to what it looks like in real life, so I'm proud of that. And then we have, yeah, just kind of a regular old Hyper Coaster, kind of winds and twists back into the woods. And then here we have like a nice little helix into a splashdown. This is probably like the most picturesque main feature of the ride. Pretty straightforward. And then here into the Kiddieland. It was called Hanna-Barbera way back in the day, and then they changed it to Nickelodeon Universe. Now I don't even know what it's called. I think it's themed. Oh yeah, it's called Planet Snoopy. Now it's themed to Charlie Brown. But anyway, when I was a kid, this was called the Wild Thornberry Log Flume Ride. Just pretty standard log flume. Nothing too crazy. Do like how the entrance turns out. You go across this little bridge to get into this building. Then you have let's see, Flying Ace Aerial Chase, which is just a little kiddie suspended swinging, or not suspended, suspended coaster. And then yeah, this Planet Snoopy or Nickelodeon Universe or Hanna-Barbera or whatever you want to call it, Kiddieland area is very, very far from being done. But I do have this little surf dog ride, which is a little back and forth ride. In reality, it's like a big platform that goes back and forth, but this is the best I could do. You got the helicopter ride, you got the Peanuts 500 mini car ride, and the Beastie. Now it's called the Woodstock Express, but it was called the Beastie when I was a kid. Little Woody coaster. And then finally, we have actually one of my favorite rides, most accurately made, I think, rides. Besides the theming, this ride probably turned out the best. We have the Italian Job. It's now called Backlot Stunt Coaster. The launches you out into this ridiculous triple helix into a lot of twists and turns through some theming. It's themed to be off originally themed to be about the movie Italian Job. So you're in these like little car style uh, cars, and you're going all throughout kind of Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, Hollywood. So I got a lot of signs and stuff, and then you get up to this area, and there's while I'm very limited with the scenery options, but you get up to this area on top of this roof, and there's a helicopter and some cars, police cars, and the helicopter shoots at a barrel, and the barrel, kind of shoots flames up. It's a really nice part of the ride. And then the rest of the ride is all underground, and it kind of pops out through here. You kind of bust out of this big billboard here. So we'll wait for that. The yellow car should be coming through here any second. Oh, there it is. And then you kind of pop out of this billboard, very picturesque, and the people in the queue line can obviously have a really good view of that. It goes underneath through this water and then back up through here. I actually had to cheat and add this chain lift right here, otherwise this whole track layout wouldn't make it through this part. It was kind of hard to make it all work, but yeah, that's Italian Job. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm still gonna be working on this, but I have pretty much all of the rides done that I wanted to add to this park. It's mainly just going to be theming and scenery from here, but it's mostly done. Again, I didn't see anybody recreate this park. Again, it's Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. So when I looked for it on YouTube, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just make it. I had a little bit of free time, so I thought I would just go for it. And I think for my first kind of attempt at a recreation of a park, so far it's turned out pretty good. So hopefully I can add more to it and post an update video sometime in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye.